Hey everybody, welcome to Banfield. I'm Brian Entin in for Ashley tonight, and we have breaking news out of Los Angeles. All of this just developing within the last hour or so. What seemed like an impossibility for decades, it is happening. Lyle and Eric Menendez could be getting out of prison. A judge just ruled within the last couple of hours that both brothers will be resentenced and given the opportunity to win parole. This is a massive win for the Menendez brothers. This is exactly what they wanted. Cameras were not allowed in the courtroom, but we've got the best next thing for you tonight. One of Lyle and Eric's lawyers is going to join me live just out of court a little while ago. She is going to be on the show in just a couple of minutes, so stick around for that. Also ahead, if you thought the Diddy trial was intense and graphic yesterday, well, buckle up. Sex, power, control, abuse, that is the foundation of the disturbing world that Cassie Ventura described under oath today on the witness stand. It is day 2 of testimony in the Sean Diddy Combs federal criminal trial, and his ex-girlfriend, she was on the stand 9 months pregnant. What she said was raw, it was graphic, it was deeply emotional. She described in excruciating detail the degrading acts that she claims that Diddy forced her to perform for years. She laid out all the alleged abuse, physical, psychological, sexual. It was really stunning to hear. We're going to break it all down. We've got our News Nation correspondent, Caitlin Becker. She was in the courtroom. She saw it all. No cameras allowed again, so it's a good thing we've got her. She's going to join me in just a minute. Plus, we've got an exclusive interview with a man who made explosive claims about Diddy and made him into a sex slave, he says, way back in 2018. This is an exclusive interview you're going to hear. This man has never spoken out, and he is now speaking out from jail to us. He just shot up Donald Trump's Miami golf course. This is crazy. Everyone thought he'd lost his mind. But now those claims line up with virtually everything that we have heard so far in Diddy's trial. This is the man right there, hasn't been able to speak out because he's been behind bars. You're going to hear him in his own words coming up later in the show. Also later, Kim Kardashian was in Paris today testifying against the so-called grandpa robbers. Remember the big robbery with Kardashian in Paris? Well, that's now on trial also. Almost a decade ago, the grandpas allegedly tied Kim up in a Paris hotel room, robbed her of more than $9 million in cash and jewelry. The crime forever changed how celebs use social media. But did it change Kim? She was wearing a $3 million necklace on the courthouse steps today. People questioning, look at her, there it is right there. Did she really learn her lesson? We're going to take you inside that courtroom. That was also highly emotional, we're told. We're going to get the details from that. But let's begin tonight in New York City, where the star prosecution witness took the stand today in Sean Diddy Combs' sex trafficking and racketeering trial. And before we go any further, a warning for you. It's late. We still got to give you the warning, though. What you're about to hear, graphic and disturbing. There's a lot that we can't even say on TV. And even for a case packed with shocking details, what came out today, it really was next level. Cassie Ventura, Diddy's on again, off again girlfriend of many years. She's married now. She's due to give birth any second. So prosecutors did not waste any time getting her story to the jury. She was up on the witness stand first thing this morning, just minutes after being sworn in. She was shown an image from that 2016 hotel surveillance video of Diddy beating her. You see, we've got the courtroom sketches here. She was asked to describe it, and she said, "That is me and Sean. We were having an encounter. We call it a freak-off." And those freak-offs are what Cassie said became her only job. Cassie told the jury that Diddy forced her into drug-fueled sex acts with male escorts while he watched, sometimes sitting in the corner and masturbating. And through tears, she said she took drugs to numb herself, ecstasy, cocaine, and ketamine, all of it allegedly supplied by Diddy. She said the freak-offs included as many as 4 male escorts at once and typically lasted 36 to 72 hours. The longest, she said, the longest freak-off that she says she was forced to perform in lasted 4 days. She said they took place around the world, from New York to Miami to Spain to even Turks and Caicos. And at every stop, Cassie said the hotel rooms were stocked by Diddy's staff with baby oil, condoms, and drugs. And she says that these hotel rooms, this is disgusting, the hotel rooms were left covered in baby oil and covered in blood and covered in urine. Cassie told the jury that the freak-offs made her feel disgusting and humiliated and worthless. But she said she couldn't say no because she says Diddy threatened to release videos of the freak-offs with her in them. And through it all, she said Diddy was in control of every aspect of her life, where she lived, what she wore, right down to the color nail polish that she was allowed to wear. And if she stepped out of line, she said that he took her keys and her phone, and often she testified that he did far worse than that. She again became emotional, describing what she said was near constant physical abuse. This is a quote. She said, "He would knock me over, drag me, kick me, stomp me in the head." And this is what she talked about all day long in this New York City courtroom. We've got News Nation national correspondent Caitlin Becker. She was in court for all of it. She joins me now live from outside the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Again, cameras not allowed, so Caitlin is going to be the one to explain to us what this was actually like inside the courthouse today. Some big bombshells. I know, Caitlin, some of it is literally too graphic to talk about on TV. I mean, some of it is totally disgusting. What were the highlights for you today?
Yeah, Brian, it's really hard to even hit on some of the more salacious, shocking, vulgar moments that she described on the stand, because they are too inappropriate in a lot of ways to discuss in front of really anyone here. I mean, you look at these sketches of Cassie. She's sitting on the stand, 9 months pregnant, taking kind of deep breaths as she answers more of these salacious and tough questions. You know, she did, and again, you said it, but I need to reiterate, these will be disturbing descriptions that I will repeat that she said on the stand. At one point, she said that a male escort had urinated in her mouth and she actually choked on it. And it was at that point someone in the courtroom actually had to walk out of the door there while, you know, Diddy sat at the defense table listening on here. But as she was describing these events where she said that, you know, there were multiple male escorts that were happening at one time, these freak-offs would happen for 2, 3, the longest 4 days at a time. And control is the word we need to talk about. That is what prosecutors really laid out. And you heard Cassie describe how every action during these freak-offs, which were between her and male escorts, not necessarily between her and her boyfriend, Sean Diddy Combs. He sat off to the side, really directing things according to her and masturbating along with what he wanted to see. But he was in control, she said, of exactly how they did everything, from the platform shoes that she needed to wear, the clothes that she needed to wear occasionally, masks, wigs, whether or not the male escort could ejaculate, where he could ejaculate. Everything, she said, was controlled by him. Mind you, Brian, his children, 6 children, are in the courtroom at this point listening to all of this. And the jury was picked knowing that they needed a certain level of comfort to hear these types of descriptions. It was very emotional and really tough to hear, Brian. But to be clear, if these are in fact consensual acts, as the defense is going to claim, there's nothing wrong with having a non-conventional sexual appetite. The key here for prosecutors was having Cassie describe the fact that she said she didn't want to do this.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that, because the defense's argument here is that this was consensual, that maybe this is morally wrong, and maybe there was domestic violence, but that Cassie was a willing participant in all of this. What was her demeanor like on the stand? There was a lot of anticipation yesterday. We saw that photo of her outside, 9 months pregnant. What was the demeanor like? Obviously, she was emotional. Was there a point where she actually broke down?
There was, Brian, there really was a few times that she welled up, and there was one point where she broke down. She did seem to struggle at least in the beginning, to want to describe in detail the things she says she had gone through. That one quote that you had read right before you brought me in was very early on after she had been sworn in, when she said to the jury that she was dragged and kicked and beat down. And the prosecutors really had to press her in order to get that information out. Before she answered it, she kind of did, because she seemed to struggle with wanting to give that answer. But as we heard her describe these, for a lot of people, grotesque sexual activities, for other people, maybe that's normal for them. But for her, it didn't seem like something she said she wanted to do. But that's not really where she broke down in tears. When she broke down in tears and needed a tissue and needed a moment to compose herself was when she described the fact that all she said she wanted was for him to love her, for him to accept her. And she said many times that the reason she continued to go along with these freak-offs is because it was the only time she felt like she had one-on-one interactions with the man she had fallen in love with, Brian.
And again, we're looking at these sketches now of her crying. It's hard, though, for us on the outside to get a sense of what this was really like. And obviously, she is the prosecution's star witness, and they've interviewed her before. Did it feel rehearsed? Did it feel spontaneous? How would you describe sort of her demeanor up there?
Genuine. Genuine is the best way I can describe
Genuine.
it. She did really seem to struggle with wanting to answer questions that were very revealing about her life. I don't know. There's almost a way that you could still see that in her there was some affection and love, not maybe for him in the room, certainly, but for the person that she once loved back then. She described her naivete when she was 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, meeting him, getting into this world, really not knowing how anything worked. She said she was almost completely sexually inexperienced by the time she met him. And there were a few times where she appeared sort of nervous and needed the prosecutor to repeat a question or maybe rephrase something or refresh her memory. And a few times where she said, you know, I just don't remember. So no, it really did not seem rehearsed in the slightest. It did seem like this is her story, and she didn't really want to be in a position where she had to tell it in this way, but was doing what needed to be done.
And just quickly, Caitlin, what was Diddy doing when he's sitting there? I'm just envisioning you've got his family sitting behind him with all these grotesque details, this woman on the stand. What was his reaction?
You know, first and foremost, he came into the courtroom and acknowledged his children. That is something he has done every single day. But during the actual testimony, when things got really dark, one of the mothers of one of his children had to get up and leave the courtroom. She couldn't sit through it. And you, Brian, have been in so many of these court cases the way I have. You know that the defendant is not supposed to react. But Diddy reacted. There were a few times where he was shaking his head no, kind of nodding along. There was a deep sigh at one point. But in two instances, one when they were talking about baby oil and the fact that it needed to be reapplied at sometimes 5-minute intervals because that's what he wanted to see. And then another instance when Cassie revealed the pseudonyms that he uses at hotels, that he actually pushed his chair all the way back from the defense table and kind of was like sort of taken aback by it. So that was very, very visible there. And he took a lot of notes and handed them to a defense attorney, Brian. And of course, we're going to get their chance to put Cassie on cross-examination and get their side of the story later this week.
Yeah, and you can imagine that team of defense lawyers probably told him not to react in any way. The jury's watching him the whole time, yet he did anyway. Caitlin Becker, appreciate your insight on what it was like in court. We'll see you again tomorrow. Cassie's bombshell testimony even shocked Lisa Bloom, who's been a trial lawyer for 40 years. And Bloom, she was paying close attention because she represents a government witness who will likely take the stand along with two of Diddy's civil accusers, including Don Richard. I spoke with Lisa Bloom earlier today about what stood out to her as she sat in court and watched Cassie's testimony. Lisa, disturbing graphic details all day long. You were inside the courtroom. What stood out the most to you?
You know, it was a deeply disturbing day, and you're right. I've been doing sexual abuse cases for almost 40 years, and this is some of the most graphic testimony that I have ever heard, in depth. Cassie Ventura, very pregnant, looking like she could be giving birth at any time, very calmly answering the questions. Because I represent a government witness, I can't comment on a lot of things, but I can read things that are now in the public record. So I'll read you some of the testimony that I wrote down verbatim. And she said, for example, I made the wrong face, and the next thing I know, I'm getting hit in the face, referring to Sean Combs. If I wasn't smiling at him the way he wanted, she says she would get hit. He would say, fix your face, watch your mouth. When he stopped by her homes unannounced because he had keys, she said it was a stomach in knots moment. And she said recovering from partying was a big part of my life. So those are just some of the pieces of testimony that are now in the record in this case.
We're looking, Lisa, right now at some of the courtroom sketches, but it's hard to get a feeling for what it was actually like in the courtroom. You were there. You mentioned that she's 9 months pregnant. Did you find her to be totally believable, and did she get emotional at all?
So the court rules don't allow me, because I represent a government witness, from commenting on her credibility. But as to emotional, yes, she did get emotional, at least at one point. And some of the testimony was clearly very difficult for her, because she would sometimes pause. She would sometimes trail off at the end, and she had to be brought back, you know, to where she had been testifying.
This was also interesting, Lisa. She referred to male escorts, these male escorts that she says she was forced to have sex with, as staff members when having their agent book travels. Does that go back to the prosecution trying to set up the sex trafficking charges? What were they doing there when they were explaining that they were described as staff members?
Well, let's talk about the top charge in this case, which is racketeering conspiracy. That is the most significant charge in this case. If convicted, he is spending the rest of his life in prison. And what the prosecution laid out in their opening statement is that this wasn't just Sean Combs, that this was a conspiracy, a group of people. And the prosecution said it was his staff members, it was his assistants, it was his executives, who were all part and parcel of this conspiracy. Of course, the defense denies that. He is presumed innocent. He has not been found guilty. So I just want to point that out. But that is an important part of the case. So what we saw today was her being asked, yes, about staff members, about other people who were part of the situation, setting up the freak-offs, cleaning up after the freak-offs, and so on.
Yeah, and again, she described those freak-offs as sometimes lasting up to 4 days and just being brutal. Lisa Bloom, we appreciate you taking the time to come out of court and speak with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, and before we move on, we did reach out to Sean Combs' attorneys today, requested a statement from them, but we have not heard back. All right, coming up, our Diddy coverage continues with a big exclusive. When police interrogated a man under arrest for shooting up Donald Trump's golf course back in 2018, his claims about being Diddy's sex slave at the Times, they seemed like the rantings of a madman. Well, now that man, you see here, he is speaking out again. This time from jail in an exclusive interview with News Nation. It is all very interesting to listen to now, his story in the context of what's happening with the trial. You're going to hear what he has to say next. So in May of 2018, a man named Jonathan Oddi opened fire at Donald Trump's Miami golf course and was shot and arrested by police. Now, Oddi said that he was in the middle of a bipolar episode. That's where it gets interesting. Later, while being questioned by Florida authorities, Oddi brought up something totally unexpected. He claimed that he'd been a sex slave for Sean Diddy Combs and Cassie Ventura. This video is courtesy of Real World Media. Take a look.
I had sex with Cassie and Sean. Basically, he would masturbate and tell me what to do with Cassie. I had like 15 encounters, and I heard a lot of business. Because what they would do is Sean talks a lot on the phone and on the TV with speakers and stuff, and I was like a sex slave.
So at the time, Oddi's story seemed too far-fetched to believe, but not anymore. And now, in an exclusive interview, Oddi opens up to News Nation senior producer Allison Weiner about his claims, beginning with why he's agreed to talk now. Listen to this.
I felt bad because I got along well with her, and I think she's a decent person. And unfortunately, I had a suspicion that she was in a situation that she was in, but I wasn't sure. And now I understand what was going on in her life and what was happening. And him beating her up in the hotel shows me the type of individual he is, and confirms that everything that happened to me was true and correct and in line with his personality.
So he's speaking to us from a Miami jail now. Here is how Oddi says it all began for him.
I was a male Chippendale, a model Chippendale, you could say. And they called me for a show they called the agency that I work for to do a show. And then I went and did a show, and things led to them offering me more money to perform sexual acts. And that's it. That's how I basically got started. I get dressed like a police officer, I do a show, and they'll strip it down. And then, they offer me some more money. They offer me some more money to do some extra stuff.
So Oddi did get specific about the extra stuff that he says Diddy wanted from him, and these specifics were consistent with what he told law enforcement during the 2014 interrogation. Here is how he describes the atmosphere and how frequently it happened.
Candles, sensual atmosphere, lights off. He would sit in a corner in a sofa, watch and masturbate. And he'd say, he'd tell her, give her instructions what to do to me. Perform oral sex, rub baby oil. Then he'd tell me rub baby on her, perform oral sex, and then have sex.
How many times did you have sex with Cassie?
Probably like 15 sessions.
And what did you get paid? How much?
It would be like 800 each time. Each act. But sometimes they'll call me twice. I'll leave, and then 3 hours later, they will call me, come back.
And so Oddi claimed that the sessions were drug-fueled, and that his concern for both Cassie and himself led him to get one of their sessions on video. Listen to what he says about that.
Why did you decide to record or video?
Because after she passed out, I decided to record that. So in the event anything worse happened, like if she died, or anybody died, it will be on camera, it will be on video, what happened. So I wouldn't be responsible for any of that.
So you were beginning to worry about her doing drugs. I mean, like about her dying or him dying or somebody dying from the drugs, and that you would be held responsible. So you brought a video. You brought your phone?
No, I had a USB video memory stick done like spy shot, and I put it in a wallet on the table. In the living room table of the hotel I was staying at. I filmed it. And it had everything I described. And it had her threatening me. But he was telling her what to say. We had an argument. When I left, I knew they were paranoid. So I wanted to guarantee my safety. So I texted him. I said, hey, if anything happens to me, I got evidence I've been with you. At the settlement table, there was a lot of irregularities, okay? Mm-hmm. It was my first settlement. So they brought me in, and Diddy had a T-shirt with two men in ski masks pointing, making gun signs, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And it was black and white, and it had a red frame, okay? But that's the way he operates. He communicates, threatening you, like saying, I'm going to have you killed.
So Oddi says to prevent the recording from going public, that's what he was just talking about, Diddy had him sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, in exchange for $5 million in hush money. This was in 2014. The Daily Mail ran a screenshot of what appears to be a signature page signed by Sean Combs and Oddi. We have not been able to obtain the document or verify its contents or authenticity, nor have we been able to verify the existence of the video that you heard him talking about. Now, according to Daily Mail's report, the timing coincided with a spending spree by Oddi of Florida real estate, and it also coincided with Oddi's divorce. His ex-wife tells the Daily Mail that she found out about his windfall only after their split.
Basically, the day the incidents happened at Trump National Doral, I had to take medication, and I had been diagnosed bipolar, but I wasn't sure I was bipolar. And I had an episode, and basically, I've been taking medication every day. I've been stable. I had no issues in jail. I've done excellent behavior in jail. Yeah, I'm ready to come out to society and be a productive member of society.
All right, so Oddi remains locked up in a Florida jail, still awaiting trial on charges of attempted murder, armed burglary, aggravated assault, and armed grand theft. Regarding the sex slave claims, we've reached out to Sean Diddy Combs' team for comment and have yet to hear back. And thank you to Allison Weiner for that interview. We'll continue to investigate all of that. All right, still to come, Lyle and Eric Menendez are closer than ever to getting out of prison. Today, a judge reduced the brothers' sentences for killing their parents. But what does that mean exactly, and how soon could they actually walk out? It was a big day, very big day for the brothers. One of Lyle and Eric's attorneys will join me live next. Lyle and Eric Menendez have been dreaming about this day for decades, thinking about it for years, planning for it for months, and it is finally here. It was a big day. Both brothers were resentenced just a couple hours ago from life in prison without parole to 50 years to life. And the change is a big deal because it makes them eligible for parole under California's youthful offender law since they committed their crime when they were under the age of 26. It is their best chance yet for being released after serving 35 years in prison for murdering their parents. Now, today's hearing was expected to last 2 days, but the judge made his decision after hearing from the brothers' family, a retired judge, a former inmate who served time with Lyle and Eric, and the brothers themselves. Prosecutors who oppose resentencing, they didn't call any witnesses. I'm joined now by one of the brothers' attorneys and a familiar face on this program, Alexandra Kazarian. Alexandra, thank you for being with us. So what happens next now? I think a lot of people were expecting the brothers to just walk out today.
That would have been fun. I would have brought them right here with me. Well, yeah. I guess probably we wouldn't have come here because this is my office. But we'd be coming to you live from somewhere fun, right? Yeah. No, we've got a hearing coming up on June 13th. We'll see what happens there. It may be converted into a parole hearing. We'll see. I'm not exactly sure what is going to happen on that day, but we've got a hearing scheduled for the 13th. So let's see. Fingers crossed. You know, this was the first step in a long journey, but it was great. I guess it wasn't the first step, but it was one step in a long journey, and we're on our way. It's really exciting.
So, Alexandra, it's a parole board from what I've read, and also the governor who will now make the final decision. Is there any indication, I'm sure you guys have done research with this parole board, how they're feeling, which way they're leaning? Like, do we have any clue of what they might be thinking?
I'm not inside anybody on the parole board's head, but I can tell you if Eric and Lyle Menendez are not suitable for parole, then nobody is. I mean, they are literally today. I know you guys didn't have cameras in the courtroom, but Mark Garagos was telling the court that when you read the law of resentencing, it reads like the Menendez brothers case. It looks like somebody took the Menendez brothers and wrote a law that should apply just specifically to them. So they are suitable for parole. I can tell you that right now. They are ready to be paroled, and it's just a matter of getting to that hearing.
Yeah, and you mentioned cameras were not allowed in the hearing today, which is why we can't see it or hear it for ourselves. But the brothers did speak. What's a little bit of what they said, and how are they feeling tonight? I imagine this has got to be emotional for them.
Yeah, their statements, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. Everybody was crying. They both did what they've been doing for years, which was expressing real, sincere remorse for their actions, talking about how they understand what they did and how devastating it was to their entire family. They thank their families for all the support that they've given them. And it was just very, very deep, very moving, very personal statements about the insight that they have into their crime and about the rehabilitation that they've gone through in this last 35 years.
Were you surprised that the prosecution didn't call any witnesses? Because I was just thinking, I mean, they've had these big press conferences and made such a big deal about this entire thing, and then to not even call a witness, was that unexpected?
No, it was not unexpected. I knew what was happening. Mark knew what was happening. Our entire team knew what was happening. I think that they were hoping, honestly, that we wouldn't get to this point because they knew that there wasn't a single witness that they could call. There was not one single witness that would ever get on the stand and testify that Eric and Lyle Menendez are not suitable for parole, that they don't have insight, that they've done anything untoward. I mean, their biggest argument is that they had a cell phone in jail. I can promise you that if I went to jail or prison in the 90s, and now, in the era of TikTok and Instagram, if somebody gave me a cell phone and told me that I could have access to that kind of world, do you think that anybody in their right mind would say, oh, no, sorry, no, thank you? I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous that they really have been arguing this entire time that Eric and Lyle Menendez are likely to commit a super strike because they possessed a cell phone in jail. There's no witness that they had that could come in and testify to their arguments that they were making. And, you know, I think that the DAs that were in court were told that they had to argue certain things, and they tried their best to do it. But no, I was not surprised.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've done a lot of stories. A lot of inmates have cell phones in prison. I think in jail. I think a lot of people would be surprised. There's a whole thing that goes on where they get the cell phones in through the guards and stuff. So that didn't really surprise me. But listen, regardless of how people feel about this case, you guys have worked hard, and this is a huge win for you. So congratulations to the legal team. Alexandra Kazarian, appreciate you coming on tonight, and we'll be watching very closely at the parole hearing to see if you guys are able to cross the finish line here.
Thank you. We will we'll be happy to update you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, still to come tonight, Kim Kardashian is no stranger to Paris, but normally she's walking red carpets, not courthouse steps. Kardashian is finally facing the men on trial for allegedly robbing her almost a decade ago. Remember that crazy story in Paris? What made the reality star's testimony today turn to tears? We've got the answer, the lowdown, that's coming up next. A lot can happen in 9 years, but don't just take my word for it. Look at Kim Kardashian. In the 9 years since she was robbed at gunpoint in a swanky Paris hotel during Fashion Week, Kim Kardashian has had 2 children with her then-husband Kanye West, divorced Kanye West, started a legal career, launched a $4 billion shapewear empire, and through it all, kept up her role in her family's smash hit reality show. But one thing that has not happened since the brazen 2016 robbery is justice. though the wait may finally be over as 10 mostly elderly suspects dubbed the Grandpa Robbers, look at them, there's one of them right there, they're now on trial in a French court. And Kim made it all the way to Paris to testify with mom Kris Jenner in tow. Her outfit was a bit more reserved than her red carpet appearances. Kim was still dressed to impress. She was sporting a $3 million diamond necklace. There it is right there. They got the pictures outside. Also a massive diamond ring that she bought to replace the $4 million engagement ring lost in the robbery. Kim K was calm during her 2-hour testimony, recounting how she opened the door to her hotel room after hearing noises outside, only to be greeted at gunpoint by robbers disguised in police uniforms. Kardashian, she was wearing only a bathrobe. She was bound. This was serious. She was bound by the intruders with zip ties, and there was duct tape. And she told the court, quote, "I absolutely thought I was going to die." She was wrong, thankfully, but the robbers did steal an estimated $9 million in jewelry and cash before fleeing into the night on bicycles. In 2017, French police arrested 17 suspects. Now, 12 were charged. 10 are on trial for armed robbery, kidnapping, and membership in a criminal gang. A letter from one of those defendants begging Kardashian's forgiveness was read aloud today, prompting the reality star to cry, even as she forgave her assailant. Later, Kim's attorney made clear just how difficult that moment was. Look at this.
It's a hard thing to ask somebody to forgive a violent crime. And make no mistake about it, it was a very violent crime. And someone asked you point blank, please forgive me for what I did to you, and she did. But deep inside, she's still their victim.
So the Grandpa Robbers could spend the rest of their lives in prison if convicted. And joining me now, celebrity blogger and podcaster Perez Hilton. Perez, I think a lot of people forgot about just how serious this was. I mean, it's been a decade with the zip ties and the way she was tied up. How emotional was this for Kim today? I mean, she still showed up with all the bling, it seems like.
I mean, from what I've read, it was emotional. Obviously, we haven't been able to see footage from court. However, a lot of what she testified today, she previously had revealed on her reality show. What I found especially noteworthy are the little bits that I had not heard before. For example, the very specific changes that she made to her security as a result of the burglary and being victimized. Kim says that now, at all times, even at night when she's sleeping in California at her home that's in a gated community, she has 4 to 6 security guards. She spends millions of dollars a year in security because she is still so traumatized by what happened 9 years ago. And also, more practically, she no longer posts her whereabouts on social media in real time.
Has this changed the way other celebrities post on social media and their security habits? I mean, did this sort of send a shockwave through, Hollywood, or do you think people have sort of gone back to normal now?
I think for the most part, celebrities know not to post in real time because it's a real safety concern. People can target your homes. People can show up where you're going to be if they know you're flying to a country. It's not even about property. It's about your own safety, I think. So, yeah, I think a lot of celebrities have really followed this path of Kim Kardashian's to stop being so oversharing. Although I did also find it very interesting that, she had all of these jewels stolen and then she showed up today dripped in jewelry and followed by her camera crew in Paris. So I think we're going to hear directly from her in the next season of The Kardashians on Hulu why she chose to wear all this bling today.
Yeah, of course we are. I mean, that's just part of their shtick. We only have 30 seconds left, but real quick, I want to shift over to the Diddy trial. We've already heard some celebrity names pop up. What do you think? Are we going to hear more? Are people nervous right now in Hollywood that they may, come up in all of this?
I don't think people are going to be nervous about this trial. I think people might be nervous about the court of public perception and possible civil trials, not in the federal case, because we saw what happened with Jay-Z and the allegedly false allegation against him. As we've heard from Cassie today and from others, it just seems that Diddy was interested just in his partner and escorts and not other celebrities.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, Perez Hilton, thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. You have to stick around because I need some moral support to get through the next story. The end of the hour. This is so gross. I didn't pick this one. Look at this. This woman delivering an Amazon package on Mother's Day. She pulled down her pants and she dropped off something else right there on the steps. It's disgusting, and it's on surveillance video, and she was an Amazon driver, and she wasn't finished. She went to another home and did the same thing. Oh, it's so gross. We're gonna talk about it next. All right, so I promise you this isn't a Banfield theme. It is pure coincidence that we're doing two stories in the same month about women caught on camera going to the bathroom where they are not supposed to. And I apologize in advance, but if the video footage didn't exist, you might not believe it. This past Sunday, Mother's Day, a delivery driver in an Amazon uniform leaves more than a package on the steps of this home near LA. We, of course, blurred the video. But that is a number two. That woman dropped on the steps of the home right in front of the family's Blink security camera. Why in the world would she do it? We obviously don't know, but she was marking her territory, apparently. It wasn't the first time, though. It wasn't repulsive enough. The same delivery driver less than a mile away uses another unlucky person's family's home as her personal outdoor bathroom. She does it again, and she's caught on camera again, and apparently even at one point looked at the security camera and knew what she was doing. So she apparently got fired. Disgusting, though, disgusting video, and we're going to leave you with that tonight. Cuomo's coming up next. Banfield's back tomorrow. I'm going to Idaho after 4 hours of sleep. Have a good night.